So, my name is Jane McAlevey, and I'm an organizer. And I think part of why I'm back in Ireland for the second time is, first of all, because I love the Irish trade union movement, to be perfectly honest. When I came here in November of 2014, after writing my first book, Raising Expectations and Raising Hell, I really there was a lot happening here, and I was really impressed by what a lot of the Irish trade unions were doing in terms of trying to rebuild, get strong, and build a whole new movement, which is what we actually have to do. So, I'm the daughter of trade union parents, I think, which is why I grew up the way I did, which was like the fight for the working class was, for me, the only fight, really. So I became a trade union organizer full-time in my early 30s. And before that, I'd been doing a lot of community campaign organizing, community campaigns, environmental organizing, sort of early climate change, early anti-free trade stuff. And part of what happened was I felt like I was working with really terrific folks, but we actually weren't reaching large masses of people, of ordinary working class folks in America. And I had an increasing frustration that in order for us to have real change anywhere in the world, I believe, ordinary working class folks have to be the leaders of that change. And the job of organizers and the role of deep organizing is to actually empower ordinary people to have the ability, the skill set, the tools to learn the history lessons about power and strategy so that they themselves can learn to become their own agents of change. So part of what I'm trying to do in my new book, in No Shortcuts, Organizing for Power, is tell stories of very recent success in the US, where a team of different unions did amazing work, what I call deep organizing, which means they understand that the change happens when ordinary workers in our society stand up and defend themselves and fight for themselves in large numbers. So I think right now the stakes are really high across the world. They're obviously really high in the US. I mean, what's a little bit strange for me whenever I leave the United States, and especially now, as you might imagine, in the new era in the US, is I always feel a bit strange as someone coming from the US and going out into the world and talking about, like, here's some things that we do that seem to work, because we actually haven't obviously solved the national problem. On the other hand, what I profile in my new book is a handful of unions that are doing it all right. And part of my argument is that if all of our national unions and all of our unions across the country had the kind of faith that we need to have in ordinary rank and file folks and empower them and enable them to actually become the leaders of their own negotiations, to engage in problem solving in the workplace, to participate really meaningfully in the life of the union, that's what actually leads to profound working class led change. And that's the story of my new book. I think it's the story of my first book. But what's nice for me about my new book, No Shortcuts, is I'm not talking about campaigns I ran. I'm actually profiling work done by lots of other amazing workers and worker leaders and organizers in different unions and different organizations. And so it's actually in some ways easier and more fun for me to talk about the new book, because I'm celebrating a lot of other people's really terrific work and showing that the same kind of methods that I use in my own life and that I talked about in my first book, in Raising Expectations, those same methods, which start and end with, do you have faith and trust in the intelligence of ordinary working class people? And if you do, and you empower them and enable them, you can actually rebuild really strong trade unions. And there is no time like now, whether it's Ireland, the United States, Canada, England, or anywhere, where we have to really get down to the fundamentals of rebuilding a strong movement.